What a great day today, getting together community leaders, business leaders, educators, students, and community leaders to talk about education. I'm Jim Oschlager. I'm with City National Bank, and we got the sponsor today. And on behalf of City National Bank, I'd certainly like to thank all of you for attending and to help find a common ground to the important issues of workforce development. City National Bank is a proud sponsor of this event because, frankly, our bank was founded in Los Angeles, and although we have now ventured into other geographies in the country, LA's economy and the upward mobility of Angelenos is so important to us. Just last night, I was with a group of student athletes at my alma mater at Long Beach State. Go Beach! Any beach out there? Awesome. And we were just talking about their careers and how important the education is for them to reach their life's goals. So we all believe that a good education can find everybody's way on the way up. It's my pleasure today to introduce our next moderator, Leticia Barajas. She's going to moderate our community college panel. Leticia is the Vice President of Academic Affairs right here at LA Trade Tech. Leticia is known as a champion for at-risk students, immigrants, incumbent workers, and women, as she has developed and piloted state-of-the-art programs to bridge them into high-demand industries. As the founder of the Bridges to Success Center, Leticia launched LA Trade Tech's K-12 partnerships with over 30 middle and high schools. Leticia Barajas holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Criminology, Law, and Society from the University of California at Irvine, an anteater, and a Master of Public Administration from Cal State University, Dominguez Hills. Please join me in welcoming Leticia.
I know we're all mingling close to our goodies in professional baking. So first of all, I wanted to welcome you to Los Angeles Trade Tech College. Over 90 years of trying to ensure we're relevant to really meet the workforce needs of the greater Los Angeles region. So continue to enjoy the work of, and I wanted to also really mention our key department chair in culinary arts, Steve Kazmar. Steve, if you can wave. He makes sure that everything goes well at the college. So first of all, thank you. I appreciate being on this panel, and I think it's a great panel considering that we are at a community college where, as Board President Sponkin said, we're one of 9 in the LA Community College District. But I recognize that I have a number of community college colleagues from all over Southern California present. So first of all, I'm going to start off by asking, if you work at a community college, please stand so we can see who you are. I saw a couple of colleagues here. That's great. Yay. I know I have some district colleagues. All right. So let's get started because we're all here to reset education for workforce readiness. And community colleges are a major engine for that. That's one of our primary aspects of our mission in terms of that. So without further delay, let me welcome and ask our panelists to come on up when I call their names. First, we have Solomon Davila. He is the Dean of Economic and Workforce Development at Pasadena City College. Welcome, Solomon. And Solomon is he oversees the career and technical education programs, extension courses, small business development, and so forth. He has quite a bit of portfolio in as a colleague at Pasadena City College. They're doing great work also with Pathways, so I wanted to mention that. You can read their full bios online as well. Also, I'd like to recognize one of our dear colleagues, one of our industry partners in our design and media arts, our fashion industry partner, Elsa Metchik. And Elsa has really been an amazing partner. And as you can see here, she's president of the California Fashion Association, where she really her role is really since 1994 of convening and being the major force behind the industry in both manufacturing and textiles. So I wanted to recognize Elsa. And also joining us is someone we take quite a bit of direction here, in particular my college president, Larry Frank. As the community college that has probably the biggest construction training program, we really recognize the leadership of our next panelist, Ron Miller, Executive Secretary of the Los Angeles Orange County Building and Construction Trades Council. You want labor, you want union, you want to hear. Ron is the person. He oversees the implementation of project labor agreements throughout Southern California, representing over 140,000 members, construction workers in 14 trades, 52 local affiliated unions. So we really count and welcome Ron. Also a dear colleague of ours, when we want to get the direction of LA County and all the major aspects of workforce development in Los Angeles County, including the Workforce Investment Board of LA County, Richard Burgess. Richard is the executive director of the LA County Workforce Development Board, and he, since 2010, has served in this role, and it's the third largest in the country, really serving over 4 million residents. And Richard is an amazing partner here at Trade. We learn from him both. One of the amazing aspects of Richard is that he's able to connect both the city and work very collaboratively with cities, workforce systems, and also the county. And also a colleague that I will now call a colleague and someone I'm going to get better acquainted with, Jeanine Wilson. She is the Vice President for Southern California Kelly Services. And Jeanine oversees the staffing and business solutions for Kelly Services throughout Southern California. And their focus is on engineering, information technology, science, and finance and accounting staffing. So I'm going to welcome our panelists. Let's welcome one more time. I think we have a great panel. So first, let me ask, and I'm going to start with Solomon, if you could, in a couple of minutes, basically give us the context of your work. And I'm going to be somewhat of a timekeeper, so I'm going to get the conversation going because we really want to drill down to the topic, which is our community colleges. What are we really meeting industry needs? And then we're going to get into the challenges. We're going to get into digging deeper to what they're mentioning, and then we'll also have an opportunity for questions and answers from the audience. So let's start off. Solomon?
Sure. I don't know if I can do it in a couple of minutes, but I'll try. And if you think it's warm up there, it's actually really warm up here as well, so bear with me. Just maybe a bit of a context for everyone. Myself personally, I'm from South Texas, this very remote region of the United States where mostly it's agricultural. And growing up, there was very limited opportunity for any type of professional work. And luckily enough, I was a part of myself through high school, was part of a career pathway type of model where there was a lot of CTE focus as well as math and English integration. And I was so impacted by that experience that I was able to go to very top-notch engineering school and practice as an engineer. And I just couldn't believe that somehow by chance I was somehow special. And so I noticed in the field of engineering a lack of many skill sets that really were missing by local schools. And by this time I was already here in California. And so I dedicated myself to go back to the community college system to teach. And I taught there for 12 years and I realized what was the deficit. The deficit of students coming in, and I'm not going to say academically challenged, I'm going to say self-esteem challenged. They didn't believe in themselves. And we even labeled them basic skills, and we labeled them CTE, and we labeled them community colleges. So there was a lot of stigma attached to the students that I was trying to help to get into jobs that I knew were very well-paid jobs because I worked with many of them as an engineer. And so I just couldn't understand why the system perpetuated the stigma. And gladly, I want to point out Dr. Robert Bell, he's in the audience, believed in my vision and believed in my story and allowed me to lead our institution into what is now a career pathway model. And because of that belief, I was able to articulate great partnerships, many of which are in the audience. Michelle Jans is here from the San Diego Economic Partnership. Paul Little is here, and of course Richard up here on the stage. These partnerships allow for essentially the brokerage of the collaboration that needs to happen with these partnerships to allow these pathways to happen. And so I consider them honestly partners in this effort to articulate why this skill set is necessary for the workforce. And that's the level that it has to happen in order for this to work.
All right, well, perfect timing. Elsa, what are your thoughts? What your perspectives in general and some of the challenges?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me here because the fashion industry is considered that little industry in the corner that makes T-shirts. We employ over 200,000 people in the Los Angeles region, and we work very, very closely with LA Trade Tech, with Santa Monica College, with Mount SAC. We go onto campus, and our experts go onto the campus with me to define what the business needs, what the students need to know to be successful. And a designer is way down on the totem pole of success in the fashion industry. Number one is business. And number one plus is communication skills. We have to get the young people out of their little machines. They have to be able to stand there and look at people and talk to people and present and define and have financial literacy. And we hope to be able to help any and all educational institutions, high schools and college. My daughter just retired from being a high school teacher and a principal from the New York area. She knows the problems involved in teaching. And I started in the United States going to kindergarten not speaking English. So I kind of relate to some of the things, but of course that's ancient history, so we don't want to go into ancient history. Our industry is very clear on what it needs. It needs people who are ready to work hard. And that is very difficult to find in today's world.
Great. So, Ron, give us some context of your work, why you're here today. Why is this important?
Well, first of all, I want to start off by thanking the BizFed for having me here and having LACCD sponsor us here today. We've had a long relationship with LA Community College District. Before there was formalized apprenticeship training, the building trades has been around over 100 years, but we looked to LA Community College District for that training before we had a formalized apprenticeship program. Nowadays, we have over 140,000 hardworking men and women in our group. We are the skilled and trained workforce for construction in Los Angeles and Orange County. We actually spend $200 million a year on apprenticeship training in the state of California, and it's $1.3 billion nationwide. And that's money that comes from the men and women of the building trades and the contractors that we partner with. So we fund our own training centers. We have about 2,500 of them across the United States. And we graduate 93% of the apprentices in construction in the state of California. So like Elsa, we could almost share people because we're looking for hard workers. Somebody likes to get up early in the morning, is not afraid to get dirty, not afraid to be sore at the end of the day because they put in a hard day's work. We make damn good money, but we have to put in the hours for it. So it's not an easy trade, but with our partnerships, like Solomon alluded to, it takes a lot of partnerships to make these things work. So while we have partnerships with LA Community College, we have a very successful partnership with the Flint Ridge Center in Pasadena. They work with formerly incarcerated youth. We're putting those folks to work. And we have a great partnership with LAUSD, Long Beach City College, and Youth Build nationwide. So it takes great partners to supply us with good qualified individuals for our programs.
Thank you. Richard, from the WIB LA County aspect and in your role.
Thank you, Leticia, and thank you all for being here today. And I especially want to also recognize BizFed and its leadership and the Institute's leadership for its vision of hosting this program, for making workforce development a priority, one of its higher priorities, and for really understanding how important the collaboration and its role in convening business and education and all of our community partners and stakeholders in this new chapter that we've embarked on. As the Executive Director of the county's Workforce Development Board, We're one of 7 boards in LA County. Many of you, hopefully all of you, know of us and have worked with us, or after today will certainly make an effort to work with us as we embark on regional alignment to coordinate, collaborate, and align our efforts and resources, especially in partnership with education and educators and higher education, but especially community colleges, one of our most important partners. This is not a new undertaking for us. The commitment and the value that we place on our relationship with education has been ongoing, and the city and the county have committed to establishing our job centers on the campuses and partnering, and not just locating our centers, but integrating our centers and services into the fabric of the important work that community colleges are doing, and most importantly, the important work that community colleges are entrusted with doing going forward. But most importantly, workforce boards are led by business and have a majority of members mandated by federal and state law to be representatives of business in order to ensure that the allocations of significant resources to the 7 boards, over $200 million annually in resources, are meeting the needs of businesses. And collectively with education, we're talking between $500 million and $1 billion a year in workforce development designed to meet the needs of businesses. But without business engaged, without business as a partner and not merely a beneficiary, these investments may not make the impact. And without business being a champion and understanding and being articulate about the leadership and the commitment and the talent that exists at community colleges to support the pipeline of talent development for current and future economic needs, it will not work.
Thank you. So how appropriate, Jeanine Wilson. Your
segue.
services, your aspect. Tell us the context of your work and give us a sense of what your perspective is.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here today. I'm glad to be joining another panel focused on this topic. It's extremely important. I work for Kelly Services, a global leader in talent acquisition and workforce solutions. So my team and I are often the arms that receive either high school graduates, folks that are in community college, and many employees that are looking for a career path and quite frankly can't figure it out. I've been involved with different workforce development committees. I've served with Richard on the Workforce Development Board as business. So I've got the unique perspective of understanding what employees are dealing with when trying to gain well-paying jobs, but I also understand screening on behalf of many organizations within Southern California what the challenges are. Sometimes no matter how badly I'd like to help them, because I am hiring on behalf of others, I am not able to because of the gap in skills in a variety of different things. Certainly, I think from a funding standpoint, from breaking down the barriers, I think that we are in a position today like we've never been before in terms of accessibility. I don't think that this problem solely lies with community colleges. A lot of this lies with business. Business is accustomed to standing and stating what all of the complaints are and challenges are and fix this and do that. And I really don't think, from a business perspective, that we're going to be able to really solve it unless business gets involved. To the earlier question of having business come in and co-lead classrooms, I don't think we're going to be able to graduate employees that are able to be put to work in mid-paying jobs versus low-wage, minimum-wage paying jobs until business gets involved and they continue to teach the curriculum that is very quickly changing within these different areas. I think that I think also from a student standpoint, I see a gap at multiple spots in their path, and that is first with high school students graduating and entering into community college. I think firstly, this is about the business of community college. It is about reaching the students and them understanding what is available to them. When I served on the Workforce Investment Board, there's so many things that are available that no one knows about. How do we get that information to the students? How do we create a defined pathway so they understand what is available to them and how they accomplish that? Because so many are lost. And I think that we would also gain higher enrollments from folks that are not in the system, if you will, if they understand what that path looks like and that they can do something with a community college degree. It's not all or nothing with a 4-year degree. There are different things that they can do with that. So when you take a look at all of the different exposure, there's this slide and one other. I'm not sure if it's before or after this, but it really is, how does all of this fit together? Funding, right? We've got lots of different programs and grants and organizations like the Workforce Investment Board to take advantage of that. How do we bring business in to really help with the curriculum so that it's relevant and it is changing as often that it needs to be? How are we using the workforce analytics, whether it's from an organization that's in workforce solutions or using databases like EMSI to figure out not only what's relevant today, but what's going to be relevant in 2 to 4 years when they actually graduate, and it's applicable then. So having that unique exposure, I'm happy to be here and share whatever I can.
All right, so really kind of common themes. All of you were very gracious in making sure that you mentioned that you're already doing work with the community colleges, kind of like Pasadena and LA Trade Tech and other districts. But I want to really pull something out of this panel because I heard a couple of things. I heard the importance of career pathways. I also heard from the earlier panel, and Jeanine, you connected it to this panel, where how do we make sure that what we're doing is relevant? Number one. And number two, how do we truly connect with industry? What does that look like? So who wants to get started in helping us understand what does the ideal business college, what is the ideal community college? If you had a magic wand, what would we do to make sure from an employer or from a county or from an association perspective, what could we do better? And this is all being honest. So who wants to take on that question first? And we're here to learn. We're at a learning institution, so we're about continuous improvement.
Well, one of the improvements is to educate the educators.
Tell us what that means.
The educators of career pathway standards need to know, whether it's construction or fashion or culinary arts, what is the latest thing happening, what is going on in the industry. The workforce is changing dramatically. Everything is based on technology. Designing a t-shirt is based on technology. And do the educators teach what they learned when they started teaching? And how do we get to them to teach them what their students need to know? I see this as the number one problem, not only in community colleges, but in 4-year colleges. Many times an educator stops learning, and they know what they know, but they don't know what they don't know. And this is one of our significant, our outreach is to the educators. Dealing with the students has to be through the educators. And all the business people in the world coming on campus won't help if there's no support.
Okay, so really focusing from your perspective, focusing on the actual employer and to the educator, and then letting them. I'll get to you, Solomon, but I'm interested in from the employer or from the association. What are your thoughts on this? How do we improve?
Well, I don't know if improve is the right word.
Or strengthen ourselves.
Without a doubt, events like today are an important part of the process, not beginning. If you look around, what you see is an education institution in transformation. And I don't think all of business and the business community truly understands where community colleges are headed and the types of investments that they are making and the types of mandates that have been placed and the responsibility that's been entrusted on community colleges in particular, but higher ed in general, to specifically meet the needs of business. No longer is education so much a free market. It is very much tailored to meet the needs of business. And the investments that both the federal government and the state are making in community colleges are transforming these institutions. And so these are institutions that belong to business. And business needs to understand that the success of these institutions are as much, if not more, in their interest and designed to meet their needs, rather than waiting for the product to be completed and then deciding whether or not it meets the mark or not. And so I've just spent 3 days, should have been 4, but 3 days at a statewide community college conference on career technical education. And the deans and the faculty in career technical education spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, designing programs and developing strategies to engage business. And part of it is a requirement, but beyond the requirement, the need for greater business engagement and to really understand how these institutions are transforming, not just superficially, but how the technology and how the curricula are evolving specifically to meet their needs requires their engagement. And so having a meeting is great, but really a tour and seeing, if you look at East LA College and you look at West LA College and you look at LACC and you look at LA Southwest, these are not the community colleges of yesterday. These are the junior colleges of yesterday. They're the community colleges of today and tomorrow. And business really has a vested interest in the success of these institutions in many regards, from preparing the faculty or supporting the faculty to encouraging and exposing students.
Great. So we heard focus on educators, make it relevant, do a better kind of a campaign to really understand the context of the policy, the requirements, the mandates, and the transformation. I'm wondering either Ron or Jeanine if you wanted to add, because how can we either improve or strengthen the relationship? What are some tips or some suggestions you have?
I think that there are a couple of key things that are missing, because all of this is true, and as I mentioned earlier, gaining exposure to some of these great programs, they're out there, but in the world of business, things are moving so quickly. We're not stopping to go and investigate what community college looks like today. Business is still very focused on, I need this degree, I need this experience. I think that, from a business standpoint, I look at everything through that lens. I'd like to have a community college marketing department, right? Because how do you get this information in the hands of business? At some point, it's one thing if it's benefiting business, because there's so many positions that are going unfilled, especially in that mid-space. It's in that mid-space that community colleges really can focus on the business of community colleges and fill that space. But that has to be marketed. The change has got to be communicated. You've got to be able to communicate to businesses why they can consider somebody coming out with an AA versus somebody who graduates from a 4-year university. It's just the overarching opinion that I need somebody who has got a 4-year degree because they've spent X amount of time focused on their major, not general education. They're going to have more practical, applicable skills versus someone that's coming out of community college. So if the coursework is changing and community colleges are in a position where they are acting more as a technical school where students are graduating things that they can actually apply, that has got to get into the knowledge of businesses on why they should consider that, especially because most businesses are struggling to fill the middle. They've got entry level, they've got degreed, they don't have enough to fill the middle where they really are fair paying wages, right? I mean, people can make, $25 an hour starting out with some of this knowledge. So it really is a matter of how do you get all of this great stuff into the hands of business versus waiting for business to come figure that out, because it's just not going to happen. Things, sometimes you've got to slow down to get there faster, but that's just not happening right now. One other thought, and Ron, I'll let you certainly give your stance on it, is I think that there is a difference between theory and application with teachers. It's one thing to tell them about the recent technology and things that are changing, whether it's different materials, whether it's, additive manufacturing, whatever it is. It's one thing for them to understand the concept. It's another thing for them to understand practical application and be able to teach that, which is why they either need to spend time actually doing it, or they need to be partnered with somebody in business who is doing that as their job every day to be able to translate that to students.
Okay, so now Ron, you're coming from your introduction. We understood there are quite a number of training institutions that have been developed over the years. So it's an interesting nexus where tell us what maybe, forget the past, what we didn't do, but tell us now, what are some of the challenges now that we could potentially overcome to work synergistically with your training institutes and to supply you with the workforce you need?
So the building trades kind of has their own model. It's a joint labor management apprenticeship. And I guess you could replace management with business. But we partner with our contractors, our business side. Labor has an equal seat at the table. We partner together to create the curriculum that contractor needs to be competitive. We all work for private contractors. They have to be competitive to get the work. If they're not competitive, we don't have a place to work. So it's very important that we partner together on the training and do what's necessary to make both of us successful. So we have a career path. We've created a national curriculum. It's called the MC3 curriculum. It's an apprenticeship readiness program. Like I said, we do the apprenticeship, but we look to community groups, community colleges, school districts to help us find those individuals that are right for our program. Since we're spending our money to put them through the apprenticeship program, and we're not talking about chump change here. First year plumber apprentice starts out at about $18 an hour plus benefits. And he goes up every year, or he or she goes up every year until plumber makes $40 an hour on the check, plus benefits. It's about a almost $70 package. So they have to be trained. They have to know the latest technology, because if we don't make that contractor competitive, nobody works. So the curriculum that we use is an apprenticeship readiness curriculum. It has two components. One's for working within the community for somebody that maybe didn't take advantage of their first chance in life. It's more like a boot camp, a 10-week boot camp. They use the model here at Trade Tech and other places. It helps that individual figure out where they really want to be in construction, and if they do, what trade they would gravitate towards. The success rate here is very good at Trade Tech. About half of them get placed in construction trade into a very good career that pays good money, benefits, and a modest pension. The other half figures out that maybe they're not cut out for construction, but they're here at Trade Tech and they decide to continue their education. So it's a win-win both ways. The second component is a high school component. It's a year-long course. It's kind of stretched out. They write papers. They get English. They get labor history, because it's very important to know where you came from, to be able to know where you're going, and try not to repeat the mistakes of yesterday, and to move forward. But they do projects. They take tours of training centers. They have different trade reps come in and speak to them. And also, it has an A through G accreditation with the state of California for entry into Cal State or UC. So for high schools that have engineering programs, it fits very well with that. For an individual that's going to go on to college to become an engineer or architect, it's a good class for those too. And it helps them get into the UC or Cal State system.
Okay, so we heard from Ron. So Solomon, we heard from the panel. They gave us the direction. Be quicker, be more nimble. Don't expect us to come to you. demonstrate your work and your transformation in progress, because you've got a lot of good work happening. Really connect with what certain industries have already determined are basic course certifications. Do that part and don't try to do it all, because we have models there. And ensure your faculty are really relevant, because they're the ones who are leading and they're the ones who have to maintain. So on behalf, and from your perspective as CTE Dean at Pasadena, but I know you're probably going to speak on behalf of a lot of CTE Deans and administrators, what's your response to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And all of these are very adequate interventions to our system, our workforce system, absolutely. And just to go back to the premise of the question, you asked, how do we become relevant and how do we connect? Okay. So if you don't mind me putting a little friendly and it's why and how, right? Why do we need to be relevant and how do we do it? And I think you had an excellent array of different aspects of how we do it, from teacher prep, from models of work-based learning with apprenticeships, with different various connections with industry partners and such. And that is very adequate. And all myself and my colleague, Dr. Alex Davis, in the audience as well, working large consortia to develop career pathways for specific industries, which is another aspect of how we do this, and the connections with our business partners as well. But let me go back a bit, and again, the relevancy is key, right? Because that's what we're all here to do. How do we make assure that our programs are relevant and that it translates into the actual classroom and the how? And there was a slide that I uploaded. I don't know if there's a Venn diagram up there that I don't know if the audience can see. But the idea is that, as someone mentioned, I think as you mentioned, the nexus of this connection is really where it's at. So we heard the why and we heard the how, but I may interject to propose that our colleagues have developed a what. Okay, and that what is basically a cultural broker that needs to happen. This idea that someone needs to understand the business needs and the hows of that, how that engagement and connection is preferred, and also the hows of the community college and the educational system, how we do our curriculum and how we do our faculty evaluations and how we navigate that world, and how our students are coming into the system. And that what is that cultural broker. They're brokering the culture of business to college. And I put this out there because I've been quite successful with the partnerships, which I mentioned earlier, providing that cultural brokerage, right? This business intermediary role, which is so critical in a career pathway model, of articulating the voice and translating for us sometimes our various languages, really helps the students navigate this.
I love the phrase cultural brokerage, but the curriculums of the colleges have not changed, but business has. So there has to be kind of a growth together. We cannot move the mountain that is community colleges. I know what it takes to change a curriculum. Gray hair, but it's a very difficult process. But that business has changed so dramatically. I brought an ad, a current ad, help wanted, seeks ambitious, organized, personable, educated, energetic assistant, computer skills a must, personality to suit customer service, experience not essential. So what does that say? That means that somebody is able to speak to somebody. In my work with the community colleges, they privately tell me that the first 6 months are remedial to what the kids are not taught at high school. Now, that's not what this panel is all about, but so you have a 2-year college and the first 6 months, so you really only have a year and a half to go forward. The first 6 months are really how many 16ths of an inch are in an inch and how to read a ruler. Those basic requirements are not there when they get out of school. And the other thing that we clearly see that we would love to work with, and I was on the WIB for 7 years, is that the WIB knows more about the business requirements. There is such an interconnectivity between fashion, home furnishings, toys, plastics, food processing, anything that has to do with consumer. It's cross-training. It's not just one industry anymore. It's cross-training.
Okay, we have opportunity for one more response, and then we're going to go, and so get ready with your questions.
Well, I appreciate Elsa's comments, and I would say that education is being given many new and much higher responsibilities than in the past. But having their finger on the pulse of the economy is probably the most important one, because the GPS of what the demands of business are and what employers are is critical to at least the public's perception of the quality and success of education. And that's as important as the actual numbers. And I think educators have not been in the business of promoting themselves and promoting their successes in a way that translates to business and education. But without a doubt, having a finger on the pulse of the economy and being able to interpret it, and that both educators and administrators and the CEOs of educational institutions really align their understanding and appreciation is critical. We are moving from a system or multiple systems of silos in workforce development, a very robust workforce development system in the region of multiple partners from labor to the WIBs to education and the community-based organizations, often overlooked and very important partners. But we're in a time where we're expected to align our efforts, align our resources, align our programs. Where coordination was good enough in the past, collaboration and alignment is a much, much higher bar. And it's true, business can't wait. Business is not patient. But the way to ensure good results is not to necessarily be patient, but to help ensure that the standards are understood better, that the equipment and the technology and the substance is available, and that in the planning of business, that education is included and at the table early on, and not as an afterthought or at the end of the planning process. Because education can deliver. We have learned that, and higher education has proven it can deliver, but it needs to be at the table much earlier and throughout. And I think, again, a program like today demonstrates how important it is to not just have an event at the college, but to have business, education, and labor at the table together and continuously.